Whether you fish casting reels or braits or not, we're going to cover the fundamentals in this episode of Hack to Fish. Alright guys, I see a lot of questions on social media about casting reels, but it took me about 6 months to learn how to cast a casting reel. And there's really 3 sets that you can go with. You can go with the standard base that looks like a booze. It's got a tension knob right here. Your braits are right here. But I wasn't really too great with them, so I went with super high-speed reels with just tension knobs. We're going to break down each one of these, and I'm going to tell you one that a lot of people don't know about. It's a conventional with no level wind, and why it doesn't have a level wind. Now, first thing I want to do is start with a reel that resembles the Abu style. Right here in a minute. Now, this is the most common casting reel everybody's been using. There's been a lot of manufacturers try to copy the Abus and whatnot, but this is the basic of what most people are going to get. Now, let me explain something about this. Just because you loosen the tension knob and you loosen this side, you think you're going to get maximum distance. What you're going to get is a bird nest. And most people that's messing with these probably knows that. But your tension knob is what controls how fast this spool goes down. Now, this knob, which has centrifugal brakes on the inside, this knob is what controls when your sinker hits the water, and it's supposed to slow your spool down. Now, when you go to set these, you want to set your tension knob to where your sinker barely comes down on your rod. The reason is because the more line comes off in this, the faster it's going to go. So, you don't need to set this real loose. You just need to set it to where the sinker is barely coming down the rod on your line. Now, sometimes this is a little bit more complicated. That's why you keep your thumb around here to stop that spool from going down when it hits the water, and then you let it up to let it go down to where the fish are. I usually set mine loose, but I'm not going to recommend that because I've got used to a loose spool. Now, the easy way to test this right here is when your sinker hits the ground, when you set your tension knob, this spool should stop. That way, when you cast the reel, there shouldn't be no bird nest or whatever you want to call it. Now, most of these reels are pretty good. I've had the Catfish Pro for a little over a year now, and you can see a video in the iCard above where I have slung this reel with the Catfish Pro rod over 100 yards with more pound test line than it recommends. I've got 30 pound on here. I have hit 100 yards with this reel. Now, if you're not used to these reels, what I suggest, don't just put a sinker on it. You want to set your line up with your sinker up here and about a 2 or 3 ounce sinker down here. That is going to resemble the size of bait that you're throwing on your rod, because it's a lot different casting just a sinker and casting a sinker and bait. Most people do not get the same distance as just casting a sinker. But this is the easiest style casting reel you can learn on. If you're catfishing, I wouldn't go below 6,500, because you want that maximum line, because if you're out there and you get hung and you have to break off some line, you will have some extra line on your spool. This is your break. Now, if you're using braid on these, I would suggest putting a little bit of mono backing on here and then tying your braid to your mono. Because what happens is your braid will slip on these because it's not getting a good enough tension on the inside of the spool. And then you're just sitting there reeling and you think your reel's tore up, which in fact is just your braid slipping. I don't use braid that much. I stick with mono, because a lot of places I fish have a lot of stuff around them, and braid tends to nick easy. Now, if you have any questions on these or anything that you want to know, leave a comment below. We're going to move on to the next one. Now, the next reel I want to talk about is a conventional level line. I use these a lot. This is one of my main casting reels that I love to fish with. But a lot of people don't like to mess with them because they don't have any brakes, centrifugal brakes on the other side. The best way to cast these is set your tension knob to where when you drop it down, this spool quits spooling. Now, the only conventional level lines that I use are super high speed and high speed. If you use a super high speed or high speed, you will get the maximum distance when casting these. A lot of people call these trolling reels. And what I consider a trolling reel looks exactly like this, but it has a depth finder of how far you can set it down. And what you do to set your depth on them trolling reels is you push the button and drop it all the way down to the bottom of the lake, reel it up to where it's not on the bottom, and then you can set it to where it drops every time at that depth where the fish are. Now, I love these. This is a Triton extra high speed. I don't know if I'm focused that in. Extra high speed reel. Now, I got this one on eBay for about 35 bucks. Back in the day, when these first come out, these reels were $150. Now, there is not much difference in this reel and this reel except for the centrifugal brakes that's on the inside of it. If you get comfortable with this and you feel that you need to go to this, I would advise a lot of practice on stopping with your thumb. I started out on these, so I forget about the brakes on the side of these when I go to cast them. I was told when I first started casting these that I would regret it. I look at it like this. Brakes just slow you down. So, I love fishing with these reels. Got a good clicker on them. Very lightweight. Very durable because it's an inshore salt reel. If it'll hold up to salt water, catch anything in fresh water. Now, a lot of people don't like these reels, but that's what I got used to. And you can put more mono on these than you can these most of the time. I tend to fish with 30 to 40 pound on most of my inshore salt reels. Depends on where I'm going. And every year I take it apart and I clean it. But I have no problem with it. Like I said, it's just a choice and what you're comfortable with. This one is about the size of a 7,000 Abu, except with no braidts. Now, I'm going to use this Triton as an example. I want to talk about a non-level line conventional. If you're fishing around a lot of dirt, a lot of sand and stuff, this level line and casting a lot of distance, this level line is eventually going to give out. If you get sand in these level line, if you don't get it out and it gets in the gears and everything, it's going to tear up. But the non-level line was made for beaches and stuff because you don't have anything to tear up. The only difference in a non-level line and a level line, when you're reeling it in, you have to guide your thumb backwards or forwards to guide your line to go on this spool. Catfish Dave used to use them a lot on bank fishing and stuff like that. He's got used to it really good. Sometimes he uses them on a boat because he don't have to worry about his level line breaking. Only thing he's got to worry about is his gears. But it's about the same as this. The non-level line don't have any braidts most of the time. Just a tension knob. I used to use a non-level line, and then I started having trouble with my hands and my fingers. If you have arthritis or anything like that, I would not suggest getting a non-level line because it is hard on your fingers and stuff, having to guide that line backwards and forwards all the time when you're reeling it in, when you're fighting a fish. And if you forget about it, it's just going to bound up on one side. But as far as distance, a non-level line will beat either one of these on casting if you know what you're doing. Abu sells non-level lines. Shimano does. Most of the salt water fishing, you fish with a non-level line. I did for a little while. And then, like I said, my hands started giving me trouble. My thumb started hurting. Putting the line back on the reel. And I traded to these. Alright guys, that was the basics. Now I want to talk about the clicker. A lot of people call it a bait alarm. But I use a clicker laying down sometimes. Now if you want to use a clicker in a rod holder, you can engage it on the side and then it makes a clicking sound. But if you're using circle hooks, you can tighten this tension knob up and it will make it harder to pull out. And then, if you're flathead fishing and you have it in a rod holder on the bank or something, or on the dock, it will give it just enough tension to start setting that hook. But it will give him enough that you will know that he's running with it. Then all you gotta do is pick it up and reel down, because the hook's already started. It just needs that little extra effort to set it real good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and say, I've been casting for 2 years. Don't get discouraged if you have backlash. Even I have backlash. But a simple way to try to get that backlash out is when it gets out there and it's not that bad, you got a backlash, you want to take your thumb and pull it back in the spool and then pull it out again, and then do it a couple of times. Sometimes it sorts itself out. If it's a horrible backlash, you want to carry these with you. I have these in my tackle box. There's a mini pick and hook from Harbor Freight. I give $1.50, and I keep this set in my bag at all times. That way, my hands are so big, it's hard sometimes to get in them smaller reels. So I just pop this out. Then you have hooks to where you can get up and under here and catch where some of these are and pull them a little bit. Easier than taking your fingers. A lot more accurate. You can reach in there and get the least little loop that's tangled in there and pull it out. It's hard to do with your fingers, because if you got bigger hands than I do, you're going to have a difficult time. Now, you can go online. I think Harbor Freight, I got these. I looked them up again. You can get a set like this for around $1.50. Then you can just put it back in your container like that, and put it back in your tool, your tackle box or tackle bag or whatever you're carrying. This has saved me a lot of grief from trying to get a bird nest out. That's just a helpful tip and a helpful hack that you can keep in your box. I guess it'd be a product review too. Now, if you want to talk to me or ask me any questions, you can check out my Facebook group. It's also called Hack to Fish. You can email me. My email's on the official Hack to Fish site on Facebook. All you got to do is go to the main part of it and look everything up. I hope this helped. I hope this information helped anybody that's starting to learn how to cast a casting reel. Or if you want to move up, get you a inshore salt with no brakes. Like I said, brakes just hold you back. And hopefully we'll get through some fishing. Been a real busy year for me. But I've been trying to get out there. But I like giving people tips that makes their life easier. That's what Hack to Fish is about. If you first time seeing these videos, click on that Hack to Fish symbol down below. It will pop up if you want to subscribe. I've got plenty of other videos information on rods, casting videos, information on hooks. I try to give a little bit of everything. Till again, this is Hack to Fish, and I'm out.